and welcome to this episode of Fuel Talk. I'm joined by Paul Humphreys, MD of eVA. Thanks for joining, Paul, today. Appreciate your time and your busy schedule. Fuel Talk is primary role is to inform customers in the industry of Cox Automotive's exciting new products and services and our direction of travel in what is certainly, I think everybody acknowledges at the moment, a disruptive period in the automotive sector. So, as I said, appreciate your time. Maybe over the next 15 minutes, we can share in terms of your specific remit, what's new in your world and what's coming down the track in terms of product services, and as we said, what relevance that is to Cox Automotive clients.
Yeah, sure. More than happy to do that. I mean, I guess, it's a really interesting time for the industry at the moment, as we all know. I mean, clearly the past few months and most of 2020 have been a bit of an odd time. Obviously not just for our industry, but for the world as a whole. I think certain things that have kind of catalysed within the industry over the last few months, things that have been coming down the track anyway. But I think, recent events have really made us look into ourselves and say, actually, are we behaving as an industry in the right way to support our customers and consumers, through times that are different. We've seen that many dealers have kind of continued to sell cars through lockdown and do that successfully through the use of e-commerce tools and remote selling. And I think that has been the catalyst to really kind of galvanise the industry into making those changes. I mean, we've clearly seen over the last number of years a number of manufacturers, dealer groups and other businesses kind of move towards that e-commerce journey. But as I say, the fact that they've had to do it, and we've had to do it over the last few months, has really kind of galvanised and catalysed the industry into doing that. And I think that's where really kind of parts of my business kind of fit into that world. As you know, my role within Cox Automotive look after our car buying valuations and our mobility solutions across international markets. So really our eVA valuation appraisal proposition is very much about tapping into both how do we value and appraise a car, particularly in light of that e-commerce journey that we're seeing the industry go down now. It's probably worth thinking about kind of how we got from where we are or where we've been in the past to where we are now. Cox Automotive has had highly accurate valuation solutions provided to our customers since 2009. Many of you will be familiar with Mannheim Seller Advance. So that's a product we developed over 10 years ago. And really what that took was kind of the industry standard valuation methods and added a layer of knowledge and nuance onto it that only ourselves as kind of as auctioneers could really kind of bring to that data. We have a team, we had and still have a team of editors or valuers within the organisation. They are constantly attending auctions, seeing what's happening in the halls, how buyers are reacting, how vendors are reacting to marketplaces. Clearly they're doing that from home at the moment. They're doing that via simulcast and other kind of vendor online tools, but they're really still able to kind of attend those auctions and really kind of, look into the digital whites of people's eyes now, I suppose, in terms of how are they behaving and how are they acting in terms of buying and selling cars. So that really gives us a level of knowledge that you can't have if you're just utilising data and algorithms to drive valuation. And I still think that's important. I mean, we are moving to a world that is much more data-driven and much more kind of data-centric, but I still think there is space in that world for human knowledge to kind of interact in that. And that's where, auction houses, where Mannheim can really add value to that valuation piece, excuse the pun, not intended. So we've been doing that for 11 years, and we're very proud of the fact that the valuations that we deliver through that product are in the region of 99.6% accurate across a basket of vehicles. And we've been doing that day in, day out for many years. And I think the truth of the matter there when you come to valuations is what we do, what others can't do, is actually we can put our money where our mouth is when it comes to valuing vehicles. Seller Advance, the key part of that product has been the advance. We will give you the cash, you the dealer, the cash for that car before that car is sold, because we have that level of confidence within our valuations that you can't have unless you really do have that ability to kind of take that metal, move that metal and kind of take the money for that metal. So that's really stand out versus a pure data company. We have the operations and the facilities to kind of bring those cars in, sell those cars to the trade and really see what the value is. So we've been doing that, as I said, since 2009. We kind of developed that product through 2015, 2016. And we launched products with manufacturers and some dealers at the time through a brand called Price and Go. Now, realistically, what we did there was take some of the knowledge we have from our US business, our international business. There's a company in the US called Kelley Blue Book. Some of you may be familiar with that. I guess what Kelley Blue Book does is that is kind of the Bible, if you like, of vehicle valuations in the US market and now internationally. And really, that's where a consumer would go, a member of the public would go to go and find out the value of their vehicle. And it's a well understood, kind of well trusted valuation brand in the US and now expanding into international markets. We took kind of how they work, what they do, and we applied that to a UK market. And we kind of dipped our toe in the water by providing Price and Go, a kind of instant cash offer through our motors.co.uk online classified that we had in 2016, 2017. But also, and probably more pertinently, we started to assist manufacturers in their e-commerce journey. So we went with Hyundai, when Hyundai launched their Click to Buy program in 2016, we used our technology, our valuations, to put the part exchange solution within that journey. We did the same for Peugeot. We subsequently did the same for Ford and Volvo. So through those journeys, we started to really understand, actually, what are the right questions to ask a consumer in valuing a vehicle? How do the answers to those questions reflect into the valuation of that vehicle? And so how can we therefore ensure that we give a value that not only will we tell you is the right value, but actually we'll buy that car? So in those part exchange journeys, we take the risk away from the retailer by saying, you know what, we'll tell you what that car's worth. You as a retailer, that then becomes a non-issue for you. It takes friction out of that process because, you know what, we'll buy that car. We'll buy the car from the consumer. We'll kind of, free up cash flow for you as the retailer. We'll guarantee underwrite the value of that vehicle, and we'll just kind of fix that problem for you. So really, in doing that through those part exchange, we continue to kind of learn, understand how we deliver values. What is the right number of questions to ask a consumer? First of all, to ensure that customer doesn't get bored through that journey and give up answering questions, after 10 minutes into a 1,000-word essay about the exact their vehicle. We understand actually the things that are important in that question set and the things that aren't important. There are certain questions that we ask that might seem a bit strange. Does your car have a panoramic roof? Because you know what? We know that a panoramic roof makes a big difference in the auction house. It might not make a big difference from a kind of make, model, derivative point of view in terms of valuation, but we know when a buyer is sat there looking at a car in an auction, if he sees the same car with a panoramic roof versus one not, that car's worth more money.
Yeah.
That might seem like a strange question, but they make a difference. And equally, we don't need to ask a myriad of questions about every single scratch, ding, dent, or bash in a car, because we know a 7-year-old car is going to have a couple of car park dings. It's going to have the odd curved alloy. We don't need to worry about asking you that because we're pretty confident that if you've got a 7-year-old car, 70,000 miles on it, it's got a scrape or two, right? It's not a perfect car. So we can assume that through that journey. By all means, if you want to tell us different and tell us that your car is absolutely pristine and showroom condition, I'm not going to believe you if it's 70,000 miles and 7 years old, but fair enough, it's going to be like that because we'll check it again. And by doing that, we can take that question set that we ask the consumer down to a really simple, probably 5 questions. So, tell us about your car. Is it excellent, good, average, fair, or, a little bit ropey? We'll explain to you what that means. Because it's not a case of guessing, is my car in good condition? We'll explain to you what good means. And good really does mean, it's good. It looks good. It's got a few scratches, a couple of pinged alloys, but generally it's in good condition. And it's got a decent service history. Maybe not a complete service history, but it's got a decent service history. Tell us that. Tell us a couple of things about its history. How many owners? What's its mileage? Have you got both the keys? What is its service history? And we'll give you a value on that car. Then I guess the beauty is, providing that car is as described, the value we give you at that point is the price we'll pay for that car. So again, Taylor, you just don't need to worry about that car. The only risk is if the customer has misdescribed their vehicle. And interesting, what we found through our manufacturer programs in particular, and in particular in new car sales, is that a consumer is more likely to underrepresent their vehicle and overrepresent it.
Wow, that's interesting.
It is, and it's an interesting psychological point, right? Because really what a customer is most afraid of in that journey is turning up having on day of delivery of their new car, having their new car turn up and someone go, your car isn't really what you said it was.
Right, gotcha.
Well, I'm going to have to take away your shiny new car and you're going to have to go through the whole journey again. So people are more likely to be critical about their vehicle in that journey. Now, I'm not saying that's true of everybody. I'm not saying that's true of every particular instance, but what we've seen certainly in manufacturer and new car e-commerce journeys, that there is an inclination for consumers to underrepresent their cars.
But as you say, it does take away a pain point. I would imagine most consumers and dealers, that interaction where there's the inspection, the walk round appraisal of the car, that's almost taken away because it's put straight into the consumer's hands in terms of description.
Well, it's transparency, right?
Yeah.
It's about making sure that there's no surprises for anyone in that journey. I mean, when you talk about selling cars online, it's interesting because if you look back at kind of selling anything online journey, right? So you go back, I think the first company that made a real success of selling online was a shoe company in the US. I forget the name of it now. But the thing they changed about selling online, the thing they made different was free returns. They made sending it back really easy, right? So you take out that risk of buying a thing online if you know that actually if I buy this jumper, this pair of trousers, this bit of food, this whatever it is, and it's not right, if I can reverse that decision quite easily, that takes away my risk factor in that kind of whole transaction. That was kind of number one about online sales. You then start to build, as that trust builds, people are willing to spend more online. I used to work in the travel industry a number of years ago, and going way back in the dim and distant there, people said, there's no way you're going to lose high street travel agents. People need to talk to a human being about their holiday. They need to understand the airline that they're flying with. They need to really see the accommodation they're staying in, the resort. We know today. I mean, James, when was the last time you booked a holiday? I bet you did it online, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Last time you actually went into a travel agent to go and arrange a trip, unless it's something complicated and difficult, like you're going from China to wherever, you're really going to do it online.
Yeah.
And that's that case of building trust, building understanding, and as a consumer being able to see what you're purchasing. The one thing that's really different about buying and selling cars online is that trading. It's that Part X. Buying a pair of jeans online, you're not asking Next to take your old jeans in part exchange for a new pair, right? You're not having to explain to them, look, there's a hole in the knee and the colour's all faded and they're ripped at the back. You just buy a pair of jeans.
Yeah.
Car transaction, over 50% of vehicle transactions have a part exchange attached to them. So when you're doing that online, you've got to find the right tools and the right way of delivering that to make that, I think the phrase you used was taking friction out, right? So let's make it easy for that to happen. So we can get the consumer to appraise their own vehicle through a simple set of questions. As long as they've told the truth, when you then go in to kind of finalize that transaction, as a retailer, all you're doing is walking around that car with the same set of questions that the customer answered and going, yes, yes, yes. You told me it was like this. Yeah, it clearly is. Oh, hang on a minute. You didn't mention this. And we can clearly see through that set of questions that you've asked that you didn't talk to us about this thing. So it builds trust. It's not that kind of teeth sucking. Oh, it's not quite. Yeah. It's a really clear. Here's the questionnaire that you answered online. I'm the retailer now. I'm going to go through exactly that same questionnaire with you, with your car in front of us, and we're going to make sure that what you said is right. And then providing what you said is right, you know what? Actually, we're going to give you that money for that car against the new car that you're buying, and nobody needs to worry about that kind of transaction and that activity because it's all happened transparently, really clearly for everybody, and everyone can see what it is. So that's kind of what we started building in 2016, 2017. As we rolled forward, we then went into kind of really starting to understand how we can deliver these valuations consistently and kind of accurately for the future. And again, we turned back to our colleagues in the US with Kelley Blue Book, and again, we pulled their kind of valuation engine into the UK, and we've pushed it full of Mannheim data to say, how can we actually understand how this really works for a UK marketplace? So we localized the product, we changed it for nuances around, make, model, derivative, description, mileage, what affects a vehicle's value, and we pumped it full of Mannheim data. And we got some really accurate valuations on there, but what we actually found was that in order to do that really, really well, we needed the most data, the most kind of comprehensive data about vehicles and what they're transacting at, both from a wholesale level and also ideally at retail level. If you can see both ends of that transaction, you can see, what's a trader paying for a car, what's a dealer paying for a car, and then actually what's he advertising that car for, what's he selling that car for, either online or in store. Then you get a really kind of full data set against which you can apply those kind of levels of knowledge that we have as Mannheim and you wouldn't have as a data company. So we partnered up with Auto Trader to consume data from Auto Trader. So we have API access to all of Auto Trader's data now. We give them all of our auction data as well as part of that agreement. So they take our auction data They add it to their retail data, put it in a big mixing bowl, stir it up, and fire it back to us. When they fired it back to us, we then apply that same level of market knowledge, of insight around auction behavior, buyer behavior, vendor behavior, and also our understanding about how small things on cars can make big differences to price, and how big things on cars can make small differences to price, which you can't really see from just analysing data and saying, you know, this VIN number behaves like this or like this. Yeah. It behaves like this, but then sometimes it goes like that. Because you know what? At certain times of the year, for reasons that nobody really understands, possibly, some cars are more valuable than they were a month ago, right? Mm. You can only really get that level of knowledge by being in the auction houses, by being in those auctions and really seeing what happens. So we can then layer that level of knowledge and that level of kind of nuance onto that hardcore data that we get from mixing our observations, Auto Trader's observations, and bringing that back in. And then we can apply that to give really accurate valuations, again, that we're willing to stand on.
I mean, that must be one of the largest data sets in the UK in that respect, in terms of wholesale retail.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Certainly the most comprehensive in terms of that are in there, and actually that whole kind of through the line piece in terms of actually, you know, the car started off like this, it's gone into an auction environment and it's sold for this, it's then being advertised and sold at this price. So that kind of totally kind of, you know, through that whole journey piece, yes, certainly it's going to be one of the most comprehensive data sets out there. And the fact that we then add on to that, you know, that level of knowledge that you can only have as a significant auction house, I think adds a richness to that data that you're just not going to get by being a data company or just seeing one end of that transaction, be it wholesale or retail.
Yeah.
Connecting those things together, you really do get a level of understanding and knowledge that you're just not going to get elsewhere. So in doing that, we then kind of built our valuations engine around that data set, and what we've created, we kind of jokingly call the mixing desk. So behind all of that data is, if you can imagine a 1990s DJ with all of his detailed kind of knobs and sliders and everything, that he's able to adjust the tempo and the rhythm and the volume and mix one tune with another one. That's what we're doing in the background, right? We've got all of these buttons and switches and dials and sliders that we're constantly changing, that are impacting on how we value vehicles. And we're doing that all day, every day. And we're updating our algorithms in the background constantly so that we are highly accurate on every single car that we see. You know what? We don't get it right every time. Occasionally we'll buy a car and we're a bit out of bed, but we'll learn from that. And we'll make sure that when we learn from that kind of lesson flows through to everything that we do in the future. So that's really where I think we differentiate ourselves from kind of other players in the valuation space, if you like. We've also devised a set of appraisal tools that help both the consumer. As I talked about before, we learned a lot of lessons through what we've done through our e-commerce journeys with manufacturers to ensure we have a question set that is kind of appropriate for use by a customer. And actually, we can customize that question set for our clients to make it absolutely right for them. Because clearly, I think if you're a manufacturer and you're selling a premium prestige brand, and it's a £40,000 car that you're selling, and you're trading against that car is maybe worth £18,000, £20,000. That's a different question set than if you're an independent retailer and you're selling a £7,000 car and expecting a £1,000 car as a trade-in. It's a different need. It's the same principle, but the subtleties of it are different. You know, in the first example, you might want to ask more specific questions about fitted equipment and, you know, the type of kind of infotainment that's in that car. And the second question, you're probably more interested in damage and, you know, has it got any major kind of, you know, mechanical problems, that kind of thing. So you customize that question set for our clients to make it appropriate for them, but still delivering the right set of questions that we can deliver a valuation that we are, again, prepared to underwrite and buy cars at. Well, that's where we've kind of got to today, and that's what eVA is. So eVA is that question set that is relevant for the customer through an e-commerce journey, but equally relevant for a retailer in an in-store environment. So in the same way that we've devised appraisal tools that are right for the customer, we've taken all the knowledge we got from Seller Advance. You remember we talked about Seller Advance? It's more than 15 minutes ago. I told you I talked for too long, James. if you think about that knowledge we took from Seller Advance in terms of delivering appraisals in store for 10 years for retailers, we've taken that knowledge and said, actually, what's the right way to appraise a trade-in when somebody drives in? Well, you know what? Here's the questions you need to ask. It's exactly what we talked about online, but this time it's saying, you know what? If somebody just drives onto your forecourt and they're really interested in that silver Golf you've had in stock for the last 35 days, how are you going to treat that customer? How are you going to behave in that appraisal journey that gives you the knowledge that we need to kind of give you a value on that car, but is also done in a human way, you know, a way that your customer can understand and you can kind of share with them. Is, I think, gone are the days of, you know what, we'll take you for a test driving that Golf, sir, let my colleague just walk around your car. Do it with the customer. Do it kind of transparently. You know, we'll give you tools that will sit on an iPad and you can walk around that car with your customer, with your iPad, go, okay, so let's just have a look at this car. Be super transparent about that happens. And then the valuation appears there in front of you, in front of your customer at the same time, if you like. And then there's no secrets. There's no mistrust in that journey. Then it's just a case of, here's what the car's worth, sir. And therefore you can carry on with that transaction really simply, really easily. And you know what, as a retailer, if you don't believe that value, it doesn't matter, because we do. So I tell you that trade is worth £2,500. You might look at it as a retailer and go, well, you know, I'd only give 2,200 for it. But that doesn't matter, because we'll buy it off you or directly from the consumer for 2,500, because that's what we've said it's worth.
Yeah.
And that's a piece of taking away that kind of friction in that journey. Equally, we've got a rules engine built into the back of the system that you as a retailer can adjust values of the cars. So do you know what? You know, if you're really good at selling, I don't know, blue Ford Focuses, you can adjust all of the values that come in for blue Ford Focuses by either percentage or a pound note amount.
Right.
So you can control that, the actual valuation that the customer sees, albeit we'll give an underlying valuation that we will underwrite. But if you want to uplift that valuation by a pound note amount or a percentage amount, you can either do it programmatically through the rules engine, or you can empower your salespeople on the forecourt or yourself to add an amount and appropriate time to say, you know what, I'm really close to closing this deal. I just could do with another £100 in that car. You can do that.
Yeah.
It's an audit traced system. So you know what, your team can't just do it and not know that you've done it. But it's there, and it really gives that power back into you to say, it's not just about the Cox Automotive eVA valuation. Yes, that's the value that they will underwrite and de-risks it for us as a retailer, but actually I can overlay that with the fact that I know my guys are really great at selling blue Ford Focus. So we can always give a little bit more money for that kind of car. So it's about empowering the consumer to kind of do that journey online, to understand the value of their car so they can confidently stack a deal against what they're buying. Then having that transparency of that valuation flowing directly in through to the install space, and then empowering the retailer to finalize that appraisal, give them the consistency of tools through the eVA valuation and appraisal tool to really finalize that valuation, but then empower them to change that valuation if it works to close that deal in an effective manner. So it's about connecting an online journey to an in-store journey, removing friction from that transaction, whether it's a purely online transaction or whether it is an online to in-store transaction. That's what eVA is there to do. It's there to take friction out of what is quite a tricky part of that process, but fundamentally to deliver valuations that we will underwrite. You know, we're not just saying we think this car's worth £2,500. I'll give you £2,500 for that car if I tell you it's worth £2,500. And I think that's where we differentiate from potentially other providers in the market.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. It's interesting, and no doubt, like you, Paul, I speak to many customers who, when you start, you know, and you've given a great insight there into eVA and the valuation journey that we've been on and are going on. But in terms of when you talk to customers and you explain what Cox Automotive businesses do and how they support the automotive ecosystem, many people say, wow, I didn't really appreciate that you guys were in that level of depth with relationship with, as you said, OEM to dealer to actually now the consumer. And certainly from everything I've seen in recent days, the headlines are saying, you know, consumers are going to be much more focused on that online journey. And as you say, it's shifted, I think not subtly, because clearly it's been a strategic decision, but actually putting everything into the consumer's world to control that valuation. And actually it's the dealer putting trust in the consumer as much as anything. which is a fascinating position.
Indeed, and vice versa, right? So it's about, it's about the dealer, the retailer allowing the customer to kind of appraise their car. It's then, because that appraisal kind of flows straight through to the retailer, they can see that as soon as that appraisal is done, that fires into the retailer.
Yeah.
Number one, it's a lead, right? And not only is it a lead, it's a really hot lead, because actually they're either looked at a car on your website, they've then gone to the trouble of appraising their own car, so they know what theirs is worth. So if that isn't a really strong lead, I really don't know what is, right?
Yeah.
Because you've put that ability into the consumer's hands, they can do a lot of it themselves. So, they're 75% down the journey before they even come to you.
Mm. Okay, so in terms of time, obviously bringing things to a close, and it's always the salesperson's toolkit is to leave the price till last, and clearly from what you've described, there's a number of different ways a potential customer could utilise eVA. From your perspective, Paul, and there'll be contact details linked in this video. What would your message be in terms of clearly we've gone way beyond that initial seller advance product in terms of how we're now white labeling valuation products for as we said, from OEM to franchise to independent. What's the best way in terms of a customer, or someone in the industry that's interested in understanding more in terms of that from Cox Automotive?
I mean, do you know what? You speak really simply about that. The easiest way for someone to go find out is go to evavaluations.com. It's not quite live yet, but we're just working on the website right now. So if you go there right now, you'll probably get a blank screen, but in the next few weeks that will be live. We'll have details there about what's available in terms of eVA, the product, and how you can use it as a retailer. As a member of the Cox team, you can go to Showpad, and all the details will be on Showpad about how eVA works, but in a kind of real headline fashion. So we have eVA in three forms, if you like, and you have eVA Lite. So eVA Lite is an in-store appraisal and valuation process that we are giving away free to all Mannheim customers. We're going through a pilot and a test phase of that first. Once we've made sure that is kind of technically correct, operationally correct, and works great, we'll start rolling that out across the whole all of our Mannheim customers. So that is a free product we'll give to everybody, which is fantastic news.
Wow.
Then as a retailer, as you're using that product, you can choose to upgrade to either the premium product or the pro product. So with premium, that brings in the online valuations into in-store, a number of other features. And then with pro, that means you can fully white label a solution. If you take the pro product, it gives you the rules builder, the rules engine to adjust the valuations yourselves. And with both the premium and the pro product, we'll also give you the underwrite or the advance within that as well. So the underwrite is where we will buy the car directly from either you, the retailer, or from the consumer. And the advance is where we will advance you the money on a basket of cars pre-auction, and then we'll reconcile that advance on a monthly basis. So, that's basically how it works in terms of, if you just want a tool to help you value cars in store, eVA Lite's for you. As I say, for a Mannheim customer, that will be a free product that we'll give if you already vend with Mannheim. Comes as part of your package once we've fully tested it. If you want a few more features and functionality, you can choose to upgrade to the premium product, or if you want the full bells and whistles.
Fantastic. Well, Paul, that's been fascinating to hear you talk through that evolution, and certainly I think, as we say, looking at the industry in terms of that digitization and the journey that we're on, I guess you and your team are going to be very busy in the coming weeks and months, which is great to hear. It's an exciting product. I'd encourage anybody, as Paul's offered there, to reach out and get some more information, either through your account director or indeed directly with the eVA team. So, Paul, thanks very, very much for your time. Really appreciate that, and good luck with the launch, and we'll look forward to catching up soon.
Thanks, James. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.
Cheers.